So in a recent interview with Sky Sports, heavyweight contender Dillian Whyte speaks about the public interest that is currently surrounding a potential fight between him and Deontay Wilder, and says that he would be willing to go and fight him out in Alabama, his hometown, if it means that he is more willing or likely to take that fight. We're going to talk about that on this video. Welcome back to the channel, people. I hope you're all doing good. I hope you're all fine and well. You're tuned in to Talk to Budge, and of course, it's your boy Budge over here. You're more than welcome to come along and join me here on the channel, but you've got to wipe your feet before you come in. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, sign up for all notifications, so whenever a new video drops, you're always the first to find out about it. You're always going to be able to watch it first and hear it first. Please, we're building this channel from the ground up, from the very bottom up. And in order to do so, I need your help. I need you to help me push the word, spread the news of Talk to Budge. And I need you guys to share it with your friends, your WhatsApp groups, your email threads at work, whatever. I just need you guys to help me get the word out, man. Please help me to build up this channel, man. And also don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section. I'm sharing my point of view and my perspective, but I want to hear from you. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a different take on it? Talk to me, man. Talk to Budge. Right. Anyway, the topic of this video is Dillian Whyte and a recent interview that he did on Sky Sports. And he was speaking about the fact that there is still a lot of interest at the moment around a potential fight between him and Deontay Wilder. Now, obviously, this is a fight that has been brewing for a very long time, back around the times where Deontay Wilder initially was being rumored to fight against Anthony Joshua. And of course, they had the very public negotiations and the supposed 50 million in a briefcase and the quoted figures back and forth, and the fact that Deontay Wilder was willing to fight against Dillian Whyte if it meant that he got the Joshua fight on the back end, and all of that stuff that has obviously been very well stated and been all over YouTube and in the boxing press and media, of course, right? So it's been brewing for a very long time. We remember after, I can't remember who it was that Dillian Whyte fought, and he was like, Wilder, let's go, calling him out, all that kind of stuff, you know, all the memes and things that came off the back of that. But we're still yet to see that fight happen. Now, after his knockout win against Povetkin recently, I did a video which was covering what could potentially be next for Dillian Whyte. And I stated a few potential opponents. I gave who I absolutely wanted him to fight next, and a few potential opponents who I felt aren't necessarily like top tier in terms of what fanfare would demand and what everyone would want to see, but who you could argue are good enough opponents for it to be billed as him rolling the dice and him taking a risk. Now, in this interview that he did with Sky Sports, he's obviously speaking about the Deontay Wilder fight again. And he's basically saying, look, he's showing and speaking about the fact that he is willing to make that fight happen. So there's a few quotes that I just want to read verbatim. So he says, I think the public demand for the Wilder fight is already there, to be honest. There's a lot of demand for it already. But fighting in America doesn't hurt, and it does increase the profile and interest and a different fan base and following. It would be good to get a big fight in America in the summer. I'll fight Wilder in Alabama if that's what it's going to take to make him feel secure and safe enough to take the fight. If he wants, he can have the home judges, his hometown, whatever. I don't care. I'd even fight him in his own home, the kitchen, the garage, the garden, wherever. I just want to get hold of him and hurt him. I'm going to go to fight. I'm going to give it my all and be the best I can be. I always come to fight and leave it all in the ring. I'm coming for war. I'm going to put on a destructive display. Wherever the fight is, whatever's going on, I'm cool. Now, hearing that is all good and well when he's saying the right things, yeah? Ultimately, he knows what the fans want. Like I said in that video, fans want to see him fight either Deontay Wilder, and if it's not going to be Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz. Those are the two top opponents that everyone wants to see Dillian Whyte fight next. Because we know already, as I've said before, that the next fight is going to be for undisputed between AJ and Tyson Fury, which means that every other heavyweight contender and every other top tier heavyweight is not going to get a chance to fight for the world heavyweight title next. So instead of waiting around for AJ and Fury to sort out whatever they're sorting out, these guys can and should absolutely be mixing it up with each other. There's no reason why we shouldn't see that happen. Now, whilst on paper, this looks good in terms of Dillian Whyte saying all of the right things for the fans, so on and so forth, I can't say I completely believe what he's saying. And why is that? Because after his fight against Povetkin, Eddie Hearn was speaking about the potential return fight for Dillian Whyte in the summer, potentially going out to fight again in Gibraltar with bigger capacity and with more fans, or fighting out in the States and so on and so forth, right? When Eddie Hearn was asked about Deontay Wilder specifically, he danced around the question and he didn't really answer what the reporter was asking. And then there was a interview that Dillian Whyte did with Kugan Cassius on IFL TV in the aftermath of that win, speaking about what lies ahead for him. And the name that he brought up in terms of a potential next opponent was Trevor Bryan. And he said in that interview with Kugan that Eddie Hearn always wants to put him in tough fights and that he wants to get a slightly softer touch in his return fight in the summer in the States, right? And he said Trevor Bryan would be a good opponent because of the fact that he has a version of the WBA title. So I believe he's got the version of the WBA title that Manuel Char had prior. But of course, he's been out of the ring for God knows how long, so he probably was stripped of that. And that's when Trevor Bryan fought against Bermane Stiverne for that vacant title in his last fight. So Trevor Bryan is an American heavyweight that a lot of people may not know too much about, right? His current record is, he's 31 years of age. His current record is 21-0, so he's an unbeaten fighter. 15 wins coming by way of knockout. And he really announced himself on the world stage in his last fight against Bermane Stiverne, who of course was a former WBC world champion and who Deontay Wilder had to beat at the first time of asking for that WBC title. Now, so Bermane Stiverne really is Trevor Bryan's biggest, it's the biggest name on his resume, right? Which was his last fight. Now, we saw Bermane Stiverne in the second Wilder fight, and it was clear for all to see that he wasn't at the level anymore, that he was a done fighter. He just turned up to that fight. It looked like he was significantly underprepared. He wasn't ready for that fight, and as a result, he was absolutely brutalized in that second fight versus Deontay Wilder and knocked out severely. Now, you saw no different in terms of his performance against Trevor Bryan. The only thing is he managed to survive until the latter rounds, but for the whole night, Trevor Bryan pretty much dominated that performance. He was peppering him with the jab all night long and then ultimately stopped him in the 11th round with the referee waved it off after dropping him twice and he hadn't recovered, right? So Bermane Stiverne is a shell of who he once was, right? He's not the same Bermane Stiverne, but of course, ultimately, he is still a name on any fighter's resume, right? And so that was Trevor Bryant's last performance. And so in that interview with Kugan Cassius, Dillian Whyte was speaking about the fact that he would potentially like to have a return fight in the summer against Trevor Bryan, potentially in America. And he spoke about the fact that he didn't really want a tough opponent. And so that's why it's difficult for me to believe this recent interview that he's done with Sky Sports, because he's changing his tune. You're speaking on IFL TV against Kugan Cassius, and you're speaking about having a touching Trevor Bryan. And then you go on Sky Sports and you're talking about the fact that you are willing to fight Deontay Wilder in his backyard. So, you know, which one is it? Do you want a softer touch back in when you return in summer? Or are you going for the big names, you know? That remains to be seen. We're going to have to wait and see what happens ultimately. But what I would prefer is if, you know, there is a consistent narrative that is stuck with, you know, because this is where ultimately fans start to lose out. We have all the clamour, we have all the fanfare, we have all of the demand for the top fights. And we've seen it happen so many times before where these fighters are linked with big names, big money fights, and it whets the appetite of the fans for us to then be disappointed when they end up fighting someone who is significantly lower in terms of public perception than who the boxer was initially linked with. And at the end of the day, it's always the fans that end up missing out, because ultimately it's going to be a pay-per-view fight because it's Dillian Whyte. We're still going to have to pay top dollar for the fight, but we're not going to be getting the fight that we ultimately want. So that's where the issue is that I have personally. Like I said, I think there's no reason why these top guys shouldn't be mixing it up with each other. That's what I want to see. I'm sure that's what most fans want to see. So let's see it happen. All the talk is great. Yeah, you want to fight him out in Alabama. You're willing to fight him in his kitchen, in his garage. That's all good and well. That's great gist. That's great chat. But I'll reserve my judgment until we actually see concrete things happening, until we see talks in progress, until we see contracts getting signed, until we see further progress on this. Because until then, it's all really hot air, isn't it, ultimately? But that's my take on it. That's my perspective. Like I said, I want to see the fight. You know, make no mistake about that. I want to see him fight against Deontay Wilder. Whether that will happen or not, we have to wait and see. I'm not gonna bet my house on it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna put all my hope and trust and faith and belief that it's gonna happen, because we've seen this story a million times before as boxing fans. So let's wait and see what happens. Hopefully it does. Hopefully Wilder is willing to. Of course, he's been very quiet ever since his loss against Tyson Fury. You know, early in 2020, February of 2020, I believe it was. Since then, he's been quiet. He's just been sticking to himself and out of public eye. You know, but let's see what happens. Let's see if he responds. Let's see if he comes back, man. But anyway, that's my take on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you believe Dillian Whyte? Do you think he's actually willing to fight against Deontay Wilder? Do you think he's willing to go out to Alabama in the US in order to fight against him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Another reminder, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, sign up for all notifications so you always are aware of when a new video drops. And I'm going to catch you on the next video. Budge, over and out.